I did mean to talk to you about the fact that Chuck Noll was such a marginal football coach. I wanted to get your feedback on that.
Wow. Well, when you have 6 rings,
Wait, you can't think right?
I just can't process what you're telling me.
It's too bad it's been so long. I don't know how you guys. Yeah. Yeah, I was looking.
It's tough when
I've
you're
got
on
every
top.
Super Bowl winner. We've got Steelers in 74, 75, 76, or no, 78, 79, 2005. That's it. Oh, no, 2006, 7, 8, 2008, 2007, 2008. It hasn't been that long. That was disrespectful. I withdraw my...
So we're multi-generational relevance.
Yeah.
Is what I'm
I
hearing.
withdraw my insult.
Yeah. I can take that back. Tell me I would like to.
Yeah. That's right. And we're on record.
That's right. Yep.
All right. We're back with Brad Surf from Gibson Insurance, and we're going to talk about risk in general. I mean, we have cyber risk. It's a popular topic on this channel, but it does go beyond the ether when it comes to cyber protections. But Brad, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tony and Tom. Appreciate you guys.
So, Tom, why don't you tee this up for us? Because this could be a broad topic. Help us channel it in a bit.
Well, I think it is a broad topic, Tony. And, when we first got engaged with some of our customers, and, part of the reason that they bring on a C-level IT leader is broader perspective. And so when we started to ask about our risk portfolio, we got blank looks, right? And so we said, hey, guys, we got to bring some people in to help us assess our overall risk. Just what is our exposure,
right?
And what is our plan to manage it? And so we figured our customers couldn't be alone. We ought to just have this as a topic and invite Brad and the team from Gibson to weigh in a bit. So
yeah.
Oh, I think of concentric circles when I think about risks that maybe are outside of traditional, property and casualty and workers' compensation risk. When you think about, cyber is more of an emerging risk, but within cyber you have reputation risk. You have the potential for leadership and culture risk. You have the potential for
what about key man insurance or things like that?
Yeah. I mean, what happens if you lose 1, 2, 3 people? Do you travel together? That's a question that's often on,
right.
How many people are on an airplane together?
And I said key man, and I want to retract that to say key individual.
Yes.
Right.
We are very DEI, Brad.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was
Joking.
Slightly offended. I'll get over it.
Well, but it's funny when you say about the flights, because I worked with a small company who was insistent that the top 3 do not fly together.
Right.
Then I'm with a company as part of a multi-billion-dollar portfolio, and their principals are on the same jet all the time.
Yeah.
Interesting, though, right?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, actuarially, the commercial aviation and even private aviation are safer than driving a motor vehicle. Often they wouldn't think about driving out to lunch together, right? But yet flying together. So I can get behind, rationalizing there, but you're right. It's not that aviation is inherently dangerous. It's that an incident or an accident involved in an aviation experience is catastrophic usually. I mean,
right. Well, so then, and key personnel insurance. So I had a policy on myself.
Right.
So is that typically the C-suite level?
Typically, yeah. But, I think about our organization. We have, 25 subchapter S shareholders that are part of the organization, and a lot of key individuals that aren't necessarily in the C-suite. But if it would material impact the firm if we were to lose one of those individuals, and their their ownership or equity ownership. We need an orderly transition for families to for the firm to reconcile their equity ownership back to the families. And so biggest thing, of course, would be the loss of the individual and their impact in the organization. But then there's this financial impact that you have to buy out their stock, and all of that, if unplanned for and unexpected, can have a significant impact on an organization.
And another thing I think of, and maybe you help dial it all in, because if every example we're giving is a separate policy, I think I'd be.
Yeah.
I always learn something when we're all together. But I think of, just recently, it was one of the games, the evils of social media. You have some influencer, or he or she thinks they're an influencer, egging on someone to get a fight on camera.
Right.
Then the phone starts recording. And in this particular recent incident at an NFL game, this was at an Eagles game.
Yeah.
I think it was an Eagles game. This individual took it too far and was throwing expletives at a lady in front. Ends up, he has a lifetime ban against. He lost his job because now he's out in his personal time, but he's an employee. Because all this is public. It's out on social media. So if you're doing something that you shouldn't, and I think we all got to feel like we're on camera.
Right.
He gets let go. So risk.
Yeah.
And how do you mitigate?
I think awareness and employee training. Of course, we should be good and upstanding to one another, but sometimes we may lose our way, and in a time of increasing division and for various reasons, we lose our way. But I think what also should be known as to enhance that risk is this idea. Just about everybody has a camera with audio and video in their hand to capture these moments. And even in the absence of that, we have had clients in the service industry where maybe in an organization that you work within or that our client works within has cameras rolling, whether you know it or not, and that's capturing both your interaction and your actions within a building or within an environment. And so that's pretty troubling if your behavior is undesirable or creates additional reputation risk or financial risk for your company. It's just the right thing to be good people, but know that a lot of your behaviors are going to be filmed and captured today.
Well, and I think when I reflect on all the various topics we just skimmed over,
right,
I think that's when a relationship, no different than why did they bring in a C-level IT person? Why do we need a more comprehensive relationship with a firm like Gibson, right? Because there's a lot of things and nobody's going to be an expert in any one of those areas.
That's right. In a firm that is good at assessing and identifying risk, but also that aligns well with your culture and values, and that you're, through your leadership training, through your planning, through your procedures, that you're constantly reinforcing your culture, and that you're, along the way, reinforcing the discipline of the culture when you see undesirable behavior.
Do you see this as HR responsibilities when it comes to that education?
They may ultimately facilitate, but I think it really is a non-delegable type of activity that needs to start at the very top with the leadership, with the CEO, owner, president. I think that's where you walk the walk and talk the talk, and it sets the example for all.
Totally agree with you. But turnover, new employees, you acquire someone, like culture's super important. Like even in our world, I'm a fan of the happy hour interview.
Right.
I assume technical competence, but we're going to go out and have the meal and be barriers down, and I want to see.
Right.
This person gets a few drinks and can't help but have a few more? Is he
Right.
outspoken and just not audience aware?
Right.
These are these subtle things that I'm equally
Paying
interested in.
attention to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Um,
That's good risk management.
You're goddamn right.
Tony. Because I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
we understand, we all have opinions, but again, to be situationally aware is a critical behavior, because the reputation, if you hire an employee that has particularly strong opinions in an area, that can be costly to you with a customer or for the firm's reputation, the hard work that you've done to develop your reputation.
and all these examples we skimmed over, that's where I think about HR. But I also, and I bring up HR specifically because I see, and I hope my narrow view of this isn't the reality, but you gentlemen would tell me otherwise. It feels like it's shifting back to administrative in these companies that just lean and we can't afford, and the bottom line pressures versus we're going to add staff and be a lot more than just admin. So when I think of these training and helping to educate, how do you prevent the next Eagles incident? Now, sometimes alcohol and anger trumps all, but there's an education side here.
There's an education, and I think it does come down to relationships and then reinforcement. We use a system called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS.
EOS.
Absolutely.
And those weekly L10 meetings, level 10 meetings, the quarterly conversations, whether it's EOS or another system that you're using, the engagement with your immediate leadership team may not be the top level leadership of the organization, but the team or department for which you function in, and that type of system allows for open discussion of issues and reinforcement of the culture, of desirable behaviors, of undesirable behaviors, in a team setting where relationships are built. And rules without relationships are, that can create a lot of stress in an environment. But when you have relationship and you're positively correcting or reinforcing a behavior, I think that that's the magic sauce.
Well, I think there's cultural risk, and you have key employee departure risk, planned or otherwise.
Right.
Cyber we beat up on almost daily basis,
Yeah.
but there's still a physical security risk also.
Right.
Someone's ability to just waltz in to an organization unchecked, or making sure your sensitive areas in the facility are fobbed.
Right.
To me, these are checklist things.
Well, and I think the broader subject of mental health awareness, expressed with the deepest sincerity and sensitivity. I think employees, many organizations don't have training or high level of awareness around people that maybe have various stressors in their life, whether it be marital issues or family issues, could be job issues, dependency issues, gambling issues. Who knows what difficulties folks might be experiencing, chemical dependency, that with good training and good relationship and identification, we can get out ahead of these exposures by, one, identifying, two, executing the proper remediation plan or the help plan for the employee. We care about our employees and we want to get them the help that they need to prevent bad outcomes.
Well, I would say Tom and I we're religious that we're in the people business. We just happen to do IT. As an argument, you're in a people business.
That's exactly right. I like the way you said that.
But when you have how everything ties together. I'm having a bad day.
Right.
No one cares that I'm having a bad day.
Right.
So I might get sloppy in what I do, or I might piss off the wrong customers. Snowball.
Or what if they care and they're glad you're having a bad day? I mean, that could happen too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Well, that's where it really snowballs.
Brad, you touched on something, and it's close to us at VCIO Global. I lived through some of this, but risk inherent as a result of mental illness.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear a lot about a mental illness epidemic in the country.
Right.
But, think about exposure and risk. Now, just a little bit of my story, so within your household, so your loved one or your spouse says to you, well, hey, I want to see those pictures from the weekend. What do? Until about 90 days ago, I hand somebody I love you, I trust you, I hand you my phone. In today's environment, when you hand somebody your phone, you just gave them access to everything. And I mean, do you see those type of situations as your...
Well, yeah, certainly. And again, we're not attorneys, but the how discoverable phone or text communications, and oh, by the way, you mentioned pictures, but there's a great would you rather. Would you rather give up all of your pictures on your phone or all of the text on your phone? I'm not asking either of you to answer that, but it's a challenging question, depending on. But the
I like that thought exercise.
But the point is, you should be aware that some of that, in the event of a business risk, may be discoverable. That certainly you two are business partners. The text between the two of you, should a case, whatever, somebody have a legal dispute with your firm, could be discoverable. And this emotion expressed in text or email or other written form or audio form, could really come. We need to always be reminded to be good to one another, but be really thinking about the risk of...
See how broad the human side risk is, like
It's incredible.
fire insurance and automobile, and I'll even say cyber.
Almost, yeah.
They're kind of black and white.
Almost seems finite, doesn't it, compared to, yeah.
It does seem finite, but the human element is so important. And in, the squeezing up of the bottom line, I always go to this. It's one of my go-tos because it's frustrating it's all about the dollar.
Yeah.
I understand we're in business to grow.
Right.
But to a certain point, you got to focus on your employees.
Yeah,
that's
right.
And be real with them. And so we did a series on one-on-one meetings, and that's where, and you should be purposeful to understand how things are going in their life.
Right.
And be genuine about it.
Right.
If you how's it going?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that report done yet?
Yeah.
And not everybody's wired to do that, but back to the snowball effect, we got to be mindful. And I like what you said about texts or pictures. I'm going to sidebar comment you because this is one of the things I always laugh at. Employees are like, "You're not going to put this MFA app on my phone." The inclination is that now you can see what I'm doing,
right?
But you'll put Facebook and all that other bullshit on there,
where everybody can see.
Yeah, so it's funny.
We always said that's cool. You don't have to have MFA on your phone. But you may not have email.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and we can have it call you instead of of course. But there's an education component there, right?
Right.
So
right. In terms of the human side and employee risk, I think the best run companies that I've been exposed to are playing the long game, and they understand the importance of those key employees, and to the extent they're having a bad time in life, they'll play the long game, get them the help they need, give them the time and space that they need so that they get back to full strength and are, part of the organization, part of the culture for the long game. We've seen that time and time again, and we're proud to be associated with firms like that.
So then, Brad, how do you go about helping a company? How do you develop an initial assessment? How do you help them get that initial view?
Yeah.
Or awakening, right? They might not be aware or self.
Yeah. Well, you say initial assessment. I mean, we always want to be actively engaged in knowing you, being on your side, which allows us to be an expert guide for you. And the assessment process is broader than traditional risks that we've talked about: property, casualty, workers' compensation risk. We want to talk about leadership perpetuation, culture, reputation, the very things that we've talked about. when you engage in dialogue and a conversation with an organization, you get a pretty clear picture of where some vulnerabilities might exist that you wouldn't have otherwise thought about. And most of what I just mentioned is not covered or transferred financially to an insurance policy, but they're very real financial risk and reputation risk to an organization.
Are there ties? I mean, are there ties to whether a company is insurable or not? Like, so if they have poor practices and there's poor employee health
Right.
indicators, do they become uninsurable on any policy level?
I was once told by a mentor of mine, there's a policy for every risk. Now you might find yourself at Lloyd's of London and have fractional share risk and very expensive. So, but I would say there are certainly industry types and segments that it's already narrow. There are very few carriers that would be willing to write in that class of business. And if you're not exhibiting and proving best practices, which is leadership, culture, safety, quality, you're right. The list may be down to one or none, and you got to beg somebody to the table, and it's going to be a premium price, cost prohibitive nearly.
Hey, Brad, thanks again for joining in, because when we talk about risk, again, this is broader than you think, especially on the human side of things.
That's right.
And we should all be mindful of this. Your insight is helpful. Again, Tom, thanks for weighing in as well.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And we'll certainly see you on the next roundtable. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.